Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, listeners of the podcast Speed Street. This is Connor Daly here. Welcome to the show. Obviously, I am not the one normally introing this show. It's normally Joey Molinaro, my podcast co-host, but he is away. He's doing very famous people things, and you got to do that. So it'll be me and Ben Walton today. But still, great show. Obviously, love talking to everyone about what's going on in the IndyCar world. A lot of IndyCar news. Great NASCAR weekend at Homestead to talk about a little bit. We have an American point scorer in Formula One. Love to see that. Logan Sargent, friend of the show. Not many shows, in our stratosphere. I don't know what's in our stratosphere, but I would say, aspiring podcasters have had Formula One point scorers on their show this year. So very, very excited to see that. But Ben, how we doing? How you doing, my friend? Or how are we feeling? You got a great shirt on, big Stuart Haas guy. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. Yeah, things are well. We're staying busy, podcasting when we can, of course. Got to keep the Speed Street listeners occupied during the off season. So had a lot of racing going this past weekend. Excited to talk about it.
Yes, and we also have a great guest this week. I have enjoyed all of our guests the last few weeks. I think we've been on a great streak of fantastic guests. And if you're new to this show too, feel free to dive back into the episodes because we've had a lot of really cool guests this year. Logan Sargent being one that we talked about. Milo Ventimiglia, actor, very famous actor who's into racing as well. We've had Bryce Case Jr. just a couple weeks ago. That episode I think is fascinating, talking about hacking the world. So again, great interview this week with Benjamin Pederson. We got back into the IndyCar world. Obviously, IndyCar driver for AJ Foyt Racing, AJ Foyt / Penske now. This is a little Penske little operation there. Again, and I know that Joey, we've given him we gave him some bad ratings at some point during the race, right? Like he got some yikes moments from us. Maybe not necessarily me, maybe more so for Joey. Joey went at him like 3 weeks in a row. But we have a great chat with him, and I think you guys will enjoy it, especially our core IndyCar fans, who enjoy getting to know people. So it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, first we have a few things to get to. Ben, would you like to tell us maybe? I think there's been some stuff going on. Feel free to let us know. I want to let you know that I know that you know what's going on.
It's really complicated. I'm not going to read into it. There's probably some grammar mistakes in there, but it's okay.
Potentially.
We had a few different driver announcements this past week. I know some big question marks got answered as far as silly season goes. The big one is friend of the show, Pietro Fittipaldi, is going to be full-time with RLL next year, which is super cool. He was awesome to have on. If you haven't checked out that episode, I think that was off-season last year, maybe? It was towards the end of last year, I think we talked to him, and he was, I think, just doing sports car stuff at the time, if I remember right.
Yes, and Haas F1 Reserve stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
Haas F1 Reserve. His brother as an F2, I think, this year. So that was an awesome conversation. But yeah, what do you think of that? That was like a big question mark on who's going to go into one of their spots.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the last major full-time seats that came off the board. Honestly, one that I was trying to fight for as well. I had no idea this was happening. My chances of getting that seat was, slim to none anyway, because I don't have a lot of great momentum. Even though I've done what I've done, when I could do it. But yeah, I think big surprise really for a lot of people. I'm usually someone who I hear the things, I hear the rumors, I get in the weeds a little bit, and I try to listen to what's going on. And from what it looked like on the Twitter sphere, it looked like not a lot of people saw this coming. Yuri Vips was there. But with Yuri's past and some things, some decisions he's made, some things he got in trouble for saying, some bad things, I don't think that sits well with a lot of the Rahal sponsors, right? It's like that. There's no doubt about that. We get that. That's the world that, that you just, that makes sense. Like that's sadly what is going on. And Pietro, I know, has had some support, and from someone who was trying to get that seat, I knew that there was, there needed to be a little bit of a financial element there, maybe to come into play. But realistically, Rahal has built such a strong 3-car team that they were still able to kind of pick their guy. And I mean, Pietro, he has wanted another chance at IndyCar. I think he even talked about it on our show. And he has not really ever gone away. I think he's got good, smart people around him too, who have been probably trying to just poke their heads around a little bit, the IndyCar paddock. And when I think about it, if he has some sponsorship support, maybe not all of it, and you need a proper chance to get in and show what you can do, I mean, this is it. So I'm very happy for him. I actually said to myself, I was I knew I wasn't going to get that seat. But I was hoping that it would go to someone that I could be excited about. You know what I mean? And Pietro, I think, is a guy that we can all be excited about. He's got a ton of momentum. The guy comes from the F1 world, which, again, he's been a reserve driver, but he's also raced in Formula One. And he's got a great fan following, got great support. Him and his brother do incredible work on, with live streams, Kick streaming. They
good
stream
content.
on Kick. They put out a lot of great stuff. So I think he's very smart. I think IndyCar fans will really like him. We have a Fittipaldi in IndyCar. That's great. I think it's very cool. So again, I'm thrilled for him. I think he's a good dude, obviously friend of the show. That's just one more seat off the board. One more seat off the board. The path to the IndyCar, season of 2024 is definitely becoming clearer. There's still a few more seats, obviously. Still some other interesting rumors that I heard this week that I was disappointed to hear, but I'm very curious to see if it actually is real. And we'll have to see how it plays out. But there's definitely some wild stuff going on in the IndyCar underworld scene right now. And it's a brutal world out there right now. But I guess that's just kind of where we're at right now.
So with them, I believe they also announced this at the same time that they're going to still keep Yuri Vips under contract, if I remember right. So
yeah, I saw that as well. Yeah.
Because of that, do you think they're going to try to sell sponsors for him? Or do you think that's just like, oh, let's try to just get an Indy 500 rider, just do a couple of races?
I actually don't know. I think obviously they're going to have a 4th car at the 500. And I've talked to Bobby about, running the 4th car with them. I think they obviously know what I did at St. Louis, finishing ahead of their guys and kind of the oval experience that I have. So I think they have a lot of interest in running me for the 4th car at Indy. And obviously running a 4th car just for a rookie, that would be tough. Like that would be a tough one. But the way I think I look at it for those guys is if they can get an engine, that's the issue, right? Is the field is so big now for teams to expand, there has to be enough engines. So, running a 4th car, I could see them doing that for a couple road course races, right? Rahal's, they do such a great job with their sponsorship, their partnerships, their funding. And realistically, they have people who are, very upstanding businessmen. You got Mike Lanigan, my Jack. I mean, that guy could fund a 4th car if he wanted, right? Hey, we're going to give our guy who we believe in, because they obviously believe in Yuri, and I think Yuri did a great job when he got in the car, and the guy was fast. If they want to give him a shot, I'm sure they can do it, but they want to make sure that everyone's still making money, everyone's still in a successful position here. So I am very curious. If we somehow, I've definitely talked to them about running their 4th car at the 500. If that's part of it and they get some more races going on and they start to connect some dots and they're like, hey, we need someone to do more oval racing. I mean, shoot, I would do that too. So there's all kinds of things that could happen. But keeping Yuri under contract, I mean, it definitely means that he's going to be doing something with them, right? So I respect them for doing that. I really do, because that, as a driver, if you think you got that seat going forward, that's tough to accept. It's hard, and I'm sure it's tough for Yuri as well, because he wants to get back in the scene. But good for Rahal for keeping him on, and you know what, I see them doing that for a reason, right? We already know they're probably going to run a 4th car at the 500, and so yeah, we'll just have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Who knows with him being under contract with them, if they throw him in some sports cars races here
They
and
also
there
have a
to keep them
sports car team.
occupied.
Yeah.
So that could be an option too.
The
But
interesting thing about the sports car program, though, as well, is like BMW plays, I think, a very heavy role in who gets those seats. So I know it's like, hey, maybe we can put our guys in the sports car stuff. But if you look at the drivers for the sports cars, like those are very BMW connected folks. So, it is what it is.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Another guy, your former team that is making some driver news headlines, Christian Rasmussen, who was last year's Indy Next champion, if I remember right, or this year's 2023.
Yes.
He's going to be running the road and street courses plus the Indy 500. So that kind of answers what they're going to do for the most part with their second car. Then I think Ed Carpenter is going to be running the other oval races in the 20 as well. So that car will be full-time but rotating drivers. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's just back to how it used to be, right? Like they I think obviously I don't want to comment on what's going on there. I don't know, but obviously I think I'm still working with the BitNile folks. I know that there's probably going to be a scale back there of what's going on, but realistically they have enough support there still to have Renus and to have Christian Rasmussen, which again, well-deserving driver. He's the guy won the championship, and we love to see the champions, get a chance. So yeah, just going back to the system, which was, when I got in there, it was road and street courses in the 500. So it's a lot of races still. Like when you think about it, like that's a lot of races for Christian, gives him a chance to drive. And again, not going to comment on what that situation is going to be like, but good for the champion. So again, I'll talk about that maybe more in 2024. But good to see him get a chance to drive, and that's kind of that's how the road to Indy works. It works, thankfully. You know what I mean? Like we put a champion with some scholarship money in a position to drive.
The scholarship money obviously is going to be a bit huge for them.
It's the scholarship money isn't really enough, but if you pair that with some other things, good for him. You got two young guys at that team now. They were looking for some senior leadership with Ryan Hunter-Reay. Obviously that didn't work. But they went with two young guys, which again, good drivers. So let's see how it goes. I'm excited for Christian. I played pickleball with him. He's a good dude, good pickleball player too. So yeah. So we'll see what happens there. But driver announcements are running fierce right now. They're all happening.
Yeah, that's definitely more dominoes are falling, and I'm assuming just as the weeks continue to click off the off season that we're gonna hear more stuff. And
and to me, like there's we still have the whole Dale Coyne Racing team. We have no idea what's going on with, right? So like there's definitely been some chatter at Dale Coyne Racing. Where's Roman Grosjean going? Grosjean actually called me this morning. I had a quick little chat with Grosjean just to see what's going on in life. He called me. Asking for something completely different, just chatting, but good to chat with Grosjean a little bit. But very curious to see what happens with him. There's rumors of stirring, and let me tell you, it's I just keep your eyes peeled, and it's I'm very curious to see how it plays out. So lots going on, but yeah, to get to some Homestead stuff, I think we had two big races going on this weekend, and again. As a race fan, I'm a race fan. I watch all racing, right? I watch the truck race. I watch the Xfinity race. I watch Formula One practices because that's what normal race fans, I believe, should be able to do. I enjoy motorsport. I'm going to watch it all. I still don't understand how we all can't watch it all, or at least attempt to, because we need to help the sport. So we had a great truck race. I was watching because Marco Andretti was in, right? Marco Andretti.
Yep.
It was his first oval truck race. Driving for the Spire team, Spire / I know Andretti's bought into that in some way. I know he was pumped to do it. Homestead, again, an amazing track. I think Homestead looks like a fantastic track. I was even watching the Xfinity qualifying, and like just watching those drivers fight the cars in qualifying. And I love seeing our boss, Dale Jr., like try to qualify and put that thing on the edge and just seeing all of that. It looks, for me, it's great to watch. I saw even my team, Emmerling Gase Motorsports, EG Motorsports, old Patrick Emmerling slid that sucker in there in qualifying, had one of the saves of the year, still put the thing in the show, thankfully. But it was, I think it's a fantastic track, and why IndyCar is not there, it just makes me sad. I don't think we have any, I don't think we're going to go there, sadly, in the near future, but in my dreams as a race fan, I don't know how many years left I have in IndyCar, but I really hope I can do more NASCAR racing, and Homestead's at the top of my list of tracks that I'd like to race on. Truck race was great. My team, Nice Motorsports, they win again. Carson Hocevar is on an absolutely strong run. But fun fact, Marco Andretti and I now have the exact same finish on our first oval races. Both of us finished P19.
That's huge.
In our first mile and a half ovals. Very, very funny how that worked. I was watching and following along, and I'm like, hey, man, he tried to run it deep on that last stint and maybe get a yellow and get some new tires on for the end. The yellow didn't come, but Marco Andretti and I both finishing with a solid, finishing in the top 20 on an oval there in a truck race. Again, that's from what I was told when I did it, that's a great effort. So congrats to Marco on a good day, learned a ton, and he got 0 practice. He got 6 laps of practice because it rained. So he got 6 more laps than I got before my Vegas race. But good for him for doing that. That was really cool to see, and he seemed like he enjoyed it. Again, that's an enjoyable form of racing for us to go to and try out. But yeah, Xfinity race I thought was great to watch there. The Cup race I thought was great to watch there. I mean, the Cup race maybe not as great as the Xfinity. I would say that the Xfinity and truck races, it looked like a lot more tire deg and a lot more challenges to drive, whereas the Cup race, I would say they were running very close to the wall, but again, Christopher Bell won by a mile, right? So that was, not quite as close as the other races.
Yeah. And Larson, I think the drama really kind of started to hike up when Larson absolutely binned it coming to pit road. He was behind Blaney. That was, the thing about Larson is I feel like he's done this in the playoffs the past few years. He bumps up the wins, he gets the playoff points, and then there's some race that he just makes a mistake and he just can't really recover. And here he has a win in the bank, luckily at Vegas. But yeah, he just overcooked it. And he was talking in his interview, he think that Blaney was over slowing coming into it, but I don't know if they looked at the data, but it's I think he was already at pit road speed. Blaney was by the time he hit the line. So I don't know.
It was an odd one.
It was very odd. Yeah. Yeah.
Because also I believe that's also one of the, a racetrack's worst nightmare when a driver hits those barrels.
Just exploded.
Some of them are usually filled with water, but because of how crazy water can explode, they've gone with sand now, clearly.
Yeah.
And that's track's worst nightmare because you had to stop the race because there's sand everywhere. You got to find more because, again, super dangerous part of the track, right? You can't just have a car careening into just a wall like a jackknife. Hey, I'm going to split this car in half. So again, pretty track's worst nightmare. Did Kyle overcook it? Yes, but I'm not really sworn to that opinion. I think Kyle gets after it as much as he can. I do think the rate of speed at which he closed on Ryan Blaney was pretty wild. And those cars, having had to try to stop one at Daytona, to come to pit lane, they're not awesome to stop. They are not awesome after you've been hauling butt around this oval for a long time, and then you try to get on the brakes. They are hard to stop. So I'm not going to, and again, they're so heavy too, that if you miss your brake point by 3 or 4 feet, your car is so heavy that it's still harder to stop. And that speed looks more than it feels like when Kyle is coming at Ryan Blaney. So hated to see that for Kyle, obviously. But yeah, it made the race. It was something that I was like, whoa, all right, this now changes up things in the race a little bit. So wild to see, but definitely I wrote that in my notes as track's worst nightmare.
Yeah, it does make for really cool slow motion clips. So it's the clips.
Very good slow motion clips.
When they're getting ready to go to commercial, they're going to show Kyle gets slow motion, the sand exploding. So It's entertaining at the least. I think like back when like the big wrecks like Watkins Glen, when they had those big old barrels too of sand and it just explodes everywhere. So it's kind of satisfying to watch. But
oh yeah, absolutely. It was definitely different. Actually, and also I don't know if anyone remembers, but like Spencer Pigot hit that wall pretty hard at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but that was he was driving for Ray Hall, I believe, a couple years ago, the Indy 500, and man, that was those are not good hits. So Kyle's probably super pumped that he didn't hit it any faster.
Right.
All right, before we get to the to our podiums from the weekend, there's a couple fun things to talk about from the podiums from the weekend. And I know we mentioned a little bit about Logan Sargent, the F1. Maybe there's some Logan Sargent in my podium. I wanted to talk about something with my young friend Ben here. And I don't know if people saw this, but I found this funny enough to talk about that it had to make the show. Because again, Ben, you're a young man, and there was a list that came out recently, and it was, I don't know, I thought it was a joke at first, but then it like ended up being on these like real like magazines and like real outlets of news, like it was a real thing. Again, this could be a joke, but it's a list of places women absolutely refuse to go on a first date to.
Mm-hmm.
And so apparently these were lists. So Ben, are you in a relationship currently?
I am. I'm freshly in a relationship. Yes.
Well, did you take your date? Let's see if you took your first date. Your first date with your lady now. I'm going to read you off
a couple places I think in mind that are going to be there, but there might be some wild ones. So we'll see
here
if
are
those meet
here are the 28 places that we are not allowed to take women on a first date. And again, I'm very happy in my relationship too, so I'm glad I don't have to go through this again. But number one on the list of places that you cannot take a first date, guys, listen up here. Apparently, this is a crazy list for me, honestly. It's wild, but some of them I do get. The Cheesecake Factory. Cannot go to the Cheesecake Factory.
Specific. Okay,
number
specific
one on the
places.
list is
Okay,
the Cheesecake Factory.
Okay.
So no first dates at the Cheesecake Factory are allowed, according to the women that were polled on this. Number two, Applebee's. Not allowed to go to Applebee's. So no first dates at Applebee's.
Okay. So no chain restaurants so far. Chain, sit-down places.
0. Number 3, Chili's. Can't go to Chili's. So can't go to Chili's either. They got a great sampler, though. I've taken my lady, Amy, to a dinner at Chili's, but this is also on the Mid-Ohio race weekend where there was nothing really there. So we did have dinner together at Chili's. It was not a first date. But
good happy hour.
Great happy hour, yeah. Number 4, Chipotle. Chipotle is number 4. That's a bold move to take a girl there on a date, I will say. That's a bold move.
Right, 100%.
Now, this one is surprising because I think this is a wonderful place. Number 5 on the list is Olive Garden. Cannot take a girl to Olive Garden on a first date. Unlimited breadsticks and salad. Yeah, I think that's a luxury.
Yeah, again, and then you can do the meal where you buy one and then you take it home, buy another one.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, don't take your first date to Olive Garden. Number 6, the movies. We can't go to the movies anymore. When I was a youth, when I was a young lad in the high school era, I would say, hey, would you like to go to a movie with me? And they were like, absolutely, let's go to a movie together. Apparently that's out. We're completely out on movie theaters now.
That's a newer one. I think that's a Gen Z thing because I've been told that's the worst spot because you can't talk.
That's true.
You can't communicate.
I mean, it makes sense. It does make sense.
Yeah.
Number 7, your house. So no first dates at the house.
Okay.
I mean, I get it. That's probably a bold move, probably too strong of a move. We don't trust anyone anymore either, so don't just go to someone's house.
Right.
Number 8, any fast food chain. Any fast food chain is out, so we can no McDonald's, no Burger King. Honestly, that one does make sense. Let's treat these women with respect, but we're not taking them to a fast food chain. Number 9, Buffalo Wild Wings.
Ooh, okay.
Number 10, Wingstop. So no wing places, apparently.
No
wing places are allowed.
It gets messy. If you do, you go for the boneless, no bone-in. So, we're trying to keep it classy.
Exactly. We got to
wear white.
I don't want to wear a bib on my first date. Right. I don't want to put that bib on to catch any buffalo sauce. Number 11, Red Lobster. Can't go to Red Lobster. Now, I have never been to a Red Lobster, so I don't know. Can't comment on that. Have you been to a Red Lobster?
I've been to, I'm personally not a fan, but I'm sketchy about seafood. So
okay, fair. Seafood destroyed my stomach in Colombia. Number 12, a buffet. Don't go to a buffet on a first date.
Or you can even go to a buffet now.
I don't know. I didn't know there were buffets still out there. Like one of those. There was a restaurant on the north side of Indy. I forget what it was called. It was a buffet, but I thought it was for like the elderly. Like I didn't know
like
that it was
Sizzler.
like a Sizzler. Is Sizzler a buffet? I don't know.
I think so. I like Golden
Okay,
Corral
no
or something.
buffets allowed on a first date. I mean, that makes sense too. I wouldn't. That's fair. 14, Denny's. Don't go to Denny's on a first date. Also makes sense. I get it. I mean, look, Denny's has a great breakfast program. I would never want to throw shade at Denny's. I know my girlfriend Amy, not opposed to Denny's. Number 15, and this one again, 15 and 16 are interesting. I don't think I've seen first dates here. The gym and church. So don't take your first dates to the gym or the house of the Lord. Apparently.
Okay. Yeah.
The gym, I'm not going on a date to the gym. I'm gonna smell like butts. I'm gonna sweat my face off. Like we're not going to the gym.
Going to the gym too, like you said, you're sweaty, and like if you're trying to push some weight, you're kind of at your weakest part that you really don't want to like show just yet. So it's just a comfort thing. So
that's
I
tough.
can see that. Church, religious things can be sensitive on a first date, so I understand that.
Yeah. And then so the next two are basically the same thing. Starbucks and coffee dates. So can't do Starbucks and coffee dates. I don't understand that at all. I love
that
coffee.
One I don't get. Starbucks is fine, but if you want to go like a local coffee shop, that's like the perfect first date.
And they got great vibes there. They might have cool little scenery, some nice music, and some stuff. Again,
does it say why, or does it just give the list?
Nope, there's no why, obviously, because some of these are insane.
We're gonna pretend that one isn't on there.
Some of them are understandable now that I'm reading through them. Ice cream dates. Can't do ice cream dates.
I've been told that as well. Not for the first one, at least.
Yeah, all right, no ice cream on the first date. I obviously have diabetes, so I'm not a big ice cream guy.
Yeah.
Number 20, family functions. Don't do family functions as a first date.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that one.
Yeah.
That's keep that straight. And this one kind of goes with earlier things, but movie night, Netflix, Hulu, etc. So you can't go to the movie theater and don't watch a movie anywhere else. So basically nowhere where it gets quiet and there's other chatter going on. I guess that makes sense. But hey, what if there's a good film on? I don't know. What if there's something great on Netflix to watch? Maybe there's you're watching the Murdoch trials. I don't know. Maybe you're watching some sort of weird serial killer documentary and you have like, hey, we're locked in on this. And that's a 4-part thing. You're now there for 6 hours. I don't know. I get it.
I like the positivity with that, I guess. I'm not going to
There's a lot of great movies out sometimes.
Yeah, I'm sure, you're going to be watching it the whole time locked in.
Oh, yeah. Locked
100%.
Getting to the end of the list here soon. Number 22, somewhere that requires a long drive. I get it. No one wants to be in the car for more than 30 to 45 minutes trying to get somewhere, especially if you're picking the young lady up, or it doesn't matter what age she is, as long as it's an adult. We're all adults here. Actually, kids, I'm sure kids are taking on first dates. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
As long as kids are taking kids on first dates, we respect the laws, and let's not be weird. But somewhere that requires a long drive, either for you or if you're driving her, that's tough because it's just anticipation and you got to be creating conversation. And I understand it. I get it. So don't you dare take someone on a long drive date.
I think that's a good point too. And I think my rule of thumb is first date, unless you like already know each other well, you drive separate. You don't really, unless they like really need a ride, you drive separate just because it allows each person to be able to
maybe they don't have a vehicle,
move themselves if they need to. Right.
So the next three, we're gonna pair them together: bowling, nightclubs, or the hookah bar. Don't go to bowling, nightclubs, or the hookah bar.
I think bowling would be a great first date. Are you kidding me?
What's wrong with bowling? My girlfriend actually wants to go bowling with me. So like I have not taken her bowling yet. Maybe we're gonna go bowling now. But again, I guess I get it. But I mean that's like an activity where you can like talk and there's music. Maybe it's like the Cosmic Bowl where you have like the lights and like the techno music is
just don't order wings if you're there.
Don't order wings at the bowling alley.
Don't. Yeah.
I honestly, nightclubs.
Nightclubs,
nightclubs and hookah bars, I get. I mean, that's just, those are grungy places. Like, look, there's different motives there. That's not a date. That's like, hey, that's not a date. That's like that's an aggressive attack on you. That's like, hey, I'm coming after you for the wrong reason. So don't trust those guys that are taking you there. 26, 27, and 28. Interesting. A bar just for drinks. I mean, I feel like, though, if you tell people, like, hey, let's go get a drink together, like, that seems...
That's pretty cash. Yeah.
Now, again, some people don't drink. That's fine. Maybe have some soda water. But, like, it's still a social activity, right? Maybe there's a fun bar. Maybe there's a fun thing. I don't understand that. 27 is Waffle House. Makes sense.
I was really hoping that was not going to go.
Waffle House is on the board.
I'm a big Waffle House guy.
Yeah, I also think Waffle House is a tremendous establishment, so I'm not really sure why that's on the list. Yes. Now, again, for a first date, I hope if she understands you're a funny guy, and like, I don't know, that for a first date going to Waffle House,
that would be bold.
I did notice that Waffle House commented on this post. This is the Complex Instagram page. I don't know how I saw this, but someone posted this. And it's funny because a lot of these restaurants, if you go to the Complex Instagram page, again, it has like 185,000 likes, but a lot of it has 15,000 comments. It's very funny because all the restaurants, like Shake Shack commented, they're like, we're in the clear. Dave & Buster's is like, looks like we're all in act. Like, a lot of great comments. The last one on the list is sports events. So we can't go to sports events, which that one is the biggest red flag for me. Like, why not? If you're if she's obviously not into the sport, I understand. Right? If you're trying to say, hey, let's go sit, in the rafters of the Pacer game, and she's like, I've literally never seen a basketball game. I don't even like the sport. That's tough. That's a tough one.
Right.
So I understand it, but it's also like, it's still a social activity. You can go there, get a bit of popcorn, maybe watch some stuff that you don't normally see, some sporting activities. So that's a bit odd.
Usually, unless you go to like a racing event, which would be a bold deal to go on first date.
But you can talk.
Usually doesn't get too loud. If you do it indoor, it's AC/heated, so you can get out of the weather if you're going on a little winter date or what have you. Is there more? Is that it?
That's it. The list is over. So that is it. What do you think, and where did you take your lady on your first date?
So, I think the beginning I'm okay with. So basically what we're saying here is don't go to any chain or franchise restaurant, which,
basically you can't be cheap. Understandable.
I was going to say it can't be cheap.
Can't be cheap.
I am personally on the factor.
But not everyone's got the money to live life. Like, we can't just go to crazy, like some expensive sushi restaurant every night. Like, goodness me.
Yeah.
I mean, now again, some of this does make sense though.
Yeah, I think once you get to it, it's just the problem is once you get through all those, what is there left to do?
That's true. I mean, you listed 28 activities here.
Yeah, 28 those are like activities. So we're talking. We got parks. I didn't see anything about concerts.
Didn't see anything about concerts. Yeah,
which is, I mean, what's the difference between going to a concert and a sporting event? I think that's true. It's similar. You're going to sit places. There's stuff going on. You can pay attention. You cannot pay attention. So, that is, I don't know. They were fine in the first half. The second half started to fall apart, which I guess they run out of things when they go with that many. My girlfriend and I, we met through a mutual friend, or she's best friends with my friend's girlfriend. So we met there, and then I think we went to a pizza restaurant.
Okay.
It was.
I'm actually surprised a pizza place wasn't on the list. Like, don't go to a pizza place.
Yeah, and it was local. Well, local place, so that's good. And she brought her dog. So it was dog friendly. The dog liked me. That went well. And then we walked around the little downtown area. So
all right. Yeah, see, that's good.
There you go. What did you and Amy do?
Oh, I mean,
first official date. I guess. I know you guys kind of knew each other for a little bit, but
that's even hard to say. I would say the first date was technically like a dinner and a nightclub. Well, my buddy was DJing, Deadmau5 was playing, so I didn't follow this list. We had a nice dinner, though. Very nice dinner. And it was not at a Waffle House. It was not at a Sizzler. It was not at a Olive Garden. It was a very nice restaurant. Obviously, I paid because I'm a gentleman. And then we went to see my friend play music. So, again, That probably, I think that's acceptable. I think it's acceptable. I think that fits in the list.
As long as she had a good time, and I think the good thing about this is you had a clear plan. It had intention of what you guys are doing. Like, we're gonna do this.
I'm a planner. I'm a big planner.
That's
I'm
good.
like, hey, had to set the make it happen. Gentlemen, hold the doors. Pull the chairs out, sit her down, all that. So take the coats, all that stuff. You got to be a gentleman these days. So
Absolutely.
I think people respect that. It only took a few years after that for her to actually date me, but we made it. We made it. We
played
put
the
in
long
the work.
game.
We put in the
long-term
work.
investment. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Exactly. You got to make a good first impression, and I think that's what I was able to do. So let's get to our podium here before we get to a great interview with Benjamin Pederson. I really wanted to get through that, though, because I thought that was hilarious. Please let us know what you think about that list. And if you haven't seen it, it might just be a joke, but it's a very funny joke. And my goodness, does it put a lot of pressure on those folks trying to get out on first dates.
It does.
So we talked about this a little bit. P3 for me on the podium for the weekend is Logan Sargent. Logan Sargent, friend of the show. If you haven't listened to his episode with us, please do. It was more towards the beginning of the year before his first Formula One season really began. Again, finished 12th on track, right? But this was an event that I think everyone was looking forward to seeing him do well at. Home Grand Prix, Austin, Texas. I mean, just last year at Austin, Texas, Logan and I were just sitting at the Williams Hospitality, and I was like, you think you got the ride next year? And he's like, I think so. I'm like, all right, let's go, baby. Like, let's get after it. So what an incredible experience for him to get a great race. Because, again, Alex Albon finished 11th. He finished 12th. Boom, you're right with your teammate. It's not like Alex Albon was 6th and he was 12th. The cars clearly had a similar level of performance, and Alex did everything he could do, and Logan did everything he could do. Then you get two cars DQ'd. You got Charles Leclerc DQ'd and Lewis Hamilton DQ'd. Boom, we're in the points. And again, this stuff can happen, but you have to be in the position to take advantage of when things like that happen. If only one car would have got DQ'd, it still would have been a great day for him, finishing 11th. But scoring a point in Formula One is a huge deal. And I actually did not realize that Scott Speed did not score any points in Formula One. I did not realize that, because Logan is the first American since Michael Andretti to score points, which is it's a wild statistic. It's sad, honestly, because I know Alex Rossi was never going to score points in that freaking Marussia car that he was driving. That thing was a bucket of bolts. I was there. I saw it with my eyes. But great to see for Logan. A lot of great and positive response. I do like what that team has supported him with, the words of encouragement from all of his guys too on their social media channels. It seems like Logan does have a bit of respect in that paddock, which I think is great. So I was really pumped for him. So that was P3 for me on the list there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I appreciate them being really encouraging on social media. And I know when he had to retire because he was overheating sick back in Qatar, they were really supportive of him, which is really nice to see, because hopefully, that means they're going to give him some more time in that seat, because he's only going to get better. So
I hope so.
Yeah, that was awesome to see. P3 for me, sticking on the F1 topic, Daniel Ricciardo was back in the race after he broke his hand, which was good. But I don't know if I know you follow part of my take on Barstool, but he went on Sunday Conversation with Caleb Presley.
Very funny.
And I just watched a couple of days ago with my roommate, and I was laughing so hard because he could not keep a straight face, and he was just smiling the whole time.
That was great.
That very entertaining. And I think they had it was like Daniel Ricciardo's honky tonk or whatever that they were doing out in Austin or somewhere, and they had all the branding and stuff. Oh, it was so funny. So I was glad to see he's still in good spirits.
Yeah, Daniel's a great dude. I texted him last week and said, hey man, just pumped to have you back. And he sent me a big thank you with a cowboy emoji. So he was ready. He was ready to get after it in Austin. He loves it. I can't wait to see him in Las Vegas. We're gonna. I believe we are trading helmets, and I owe him a bottle of bourbon. So might have a Daniel Ricciardo helmet to add to the collection if I remember correctly, and we all if we all agree on what we were going to agree on. So I'm pumped for that. But either way, it's going to be great to see him.
Maybe try to get him on the show in the future.
I would love to try to get him on the show.
Awesome.
Maybe I'll try to just record a nice little audio clip.
Yeah, please do.
But yeah, great dude. Love to see that. All right, P2 on my list is the Andretti Formula One team. That is being pushed for. I know we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but a lot is coming out, and a lot of people are throwing around a lot of comments about it. There's a lot of just wild stuff going on, and it's just so much of it. I actually, it's physically, and I actually was talking with this, with someone about this at the gym this morning. I physically cannot believe that there is so much like anti-Andretti to Formula One from the folks in Formula One. Now, I understand there's hundreds of millions of dollars in play there that I don't even know what $1 million looks like. So hundreds of millions of dollars, like, man, that'd be sweet. But if you want your sport to grow, if you add cars for fans to be a fan of and like add elements to the sport, new drivers, new partners, new owners, new team stuff, grow it. I don't know how that is a bad thing. Now, again,
It is.
someone could explain to me like, well, every team loses $150 million. And I was like, well, that's a lot of money, but like, how long do you lose that money for? Like when, like maybe it's actually going to be a good thing in the long run. I don't know. I see it being a good thing. I obviously am not the smartest person in the world. But I do love to hear that Andretti has apparently constructed a Formula One car already and have run it in the wind tunnel already. Like, that's awesome. Like, Andretti is coming in here to try to do this and do it properly. And man, like, you got to respect that. Like, if there's this much effort being put in already, like, how can you deny them that opportunity? Like, I find it astounding that you would refuse. I mean, I just remember not too many years ago, I grew up in this era where like, yeah, let's have HRT and Manor Russia, all these like two awful teams get into Formula One who could barely produce cars that ran. But again, think of what HRT actually created. You know who drove at HRT before he drove at Red Bull Racing? Daniel Ricciardo. You know who drove at Manor Russia? Well, Max Chilton before he got to Indycar. And Alex Rossi. Like, this provides a whole other opportunity for just so much. So I don't understand how you could not want to do this. And I don't see how, again, there's numbers behind it where I'm sure you could fight it 50-50, but it's so anti-American still. It's astounding. Everyone in Formula One, the whole Formula One, like, and again, I'm saying this, I'm going to commentate at the Las Vegas Formula One race. Like, I love a lot of the people that I've met in Formula One, but sadly there is still this, there's still this anti-American type thing. Again, we'll go to America, we'll take all their money, we'll go do these events and take all the fans' money. But like, if you really want to get involved, like, I don't know. So again, I hope that we see this happen because again, I love what Andretti's doing. I think it's awesome. I think it's a huge step forward for them and taking, this attempt to be in Formula One very seriously.
Yeah, and like the amount of money they probably made from all the American initiatives with like, I mean, look at what they just did this past week with like all of them. Like you said, they had like this media takeover where they just spread across the U.S. to promote the race, and Vegas is still coming up, like you said, and you're going to be there. And like I find it hard to believe that if viewership is already increasing over the past few years for the Americans, if you get an American team, you get more viewership watching the race. Doesn't that benefit everybody? Like, that's a huge
and it's the Andretti
marketing
name. Like, come on, everyone in the world knows the Andretti name. Maybe not everyone, but like a large percentage.
Right. Yeah. So that is frustrating, but hopefully they keep at it, and they are to get their bid. So, but P2 for me.
How about you? Yeah.
My Minnesota Vikings beating the Niners last night, Monday Night Football. Monday Night Football, not last night, but 2 nights ago. We have a glimmer of hope, which is crazy. It's crazy. My sports have been down recently,
dude,
and we have something.
I had money on the 49ers. Everything about NFL betting. Everything about NFL betting over the weekend, by the way, and this might be foreign language to a lot of people. That was disgusting. What was going on? The Lions got destroyed. The 49ers got absolutely just destroyed. Brock Purdy looked like an amateur. I don't know what was happening in the NFL over the weekend, but everything, all the people were wrong. Everyone was wrong. Everyone lost money, I think, because it's just crazy. So again, good teams all of a sudden sucked, and the sucky teams all of a sudden were good. interesting. So again, congrats to your Viking. I watched that whole game.
Thank you. Yeah, I was very reluctant the entire time. I'm like, this would be a great way to lose, and then we can just continue to try to get a draft pick. We got some guys we could trade, but now I'm like,
but now you're back in it.
Now I'm conflicted. I'm like, I don't know what I want, so I'm just gonna let it happen and not think too much into it. So
that is fair. That is fair. All right, we are moving to number 1 on the list, and I know it's gonna sound wild that this takes number 1 over the Andretti Formula One and Logan Sargent. But ribeyes for me are number 1. Ribeye steaks. If you've known me for a long time, I went vegan for a little while at the end of 2017, and people made fun of me for it a lot. Pat McAfee, the Pat McAfee show, they made fun of me for it a lot. I brought in a bunch of veggie sandwiches to all of them one day in their office, which was kind of funny. But I was really only vegan until like the beginning of 2018. It was like a 6-month adventure. But people still to this day, because of what Pat McAfee said and like all this stuff, people still ask to this day if I'm vegan. And like I even had someone ask me just 2 days ago, hey, like you're vegetarian, right? I'm like, no, I'm not. But I was really only eating fish for a very long time. I was like pescatarian. So now, like I'm like, hey, I'm gonna try to have more protein in my life. I'm not really sticking to the pescatarian diet. I'm eating well, but I'm not limiting myself. Like I'm gonna have, and I had a ribeye steak at at Prime 47 downtown. And oh my gosh, it was so good. That was like my first ribeye steak in like 6 years. So
wow,
it was so delicious. Oh man, wild to think what I've been missing out on. So that was delicious. Hands up, ribeyes were great.
Are you sauce or no sauce guy? Do you use A1?
No sauce.
No sauce. Okay,
it was good enough
the steak
to just
for what it is.
Get in me.
Yep. Yeah. Good.
Get in me.
Good. Yeah. No, I'm also a big steak enjoyer. When I went to the 500 a few years ago, I had St. Elmo's, and that was I think I got the filet, and that was very solid. But next time if I'm ever in Indy, I might have tried Prime 47 because Joey, it also seems like he's a big fan of that place. So
oh yeah, very good.
Cool. Well, P1 for me, this is gonna go back to relate to our date conversation that we just had. I want to shout out the couple that found my girlfriend's car keys that she lost on our hike on Saturday. So we broke a few rules. I mean, it wasn't our first date, obviously, but we drove about 2.5 hours to this hiking mountain area.
No long drives on the first date, Ben.
No long drive.
drives.
We broke a lot of things. So we go there and we, hike probably took like 45 minutes or so. We get up to the top and she attached the keys to her dog, which was interesting.
Oh dear.
A backpack, and they weren't there. So we, go like a quarter of the way down the mountain, couldn't find them, go back up, check out the view, and then we head back down. And luckily, there's a couple right at the bottom of the trail that was in front of the map that had the keys, and they were like, yep, we had a couple that gave it to us, and then we went up and then went back down. So thank you to whoever they were. We didn't get their names, but that could have been very catastrophic trying to figure out how to unlock your car. And then the nearest town was like, probably would have been like a 50-minute drive down the mountain.
Cool.
So
tough day. Glad we had the good citizens of the world.
Right. Yes. Very thankful for them.
Well, all right. That was cool. Glad we got to talk about a lot of that stuff. Great episode today. Let's get to Benjamin Pederson. Great interview coming up right now. Well, fantastic listeners of this program. Today we have a great guest, another fantastic guest, an IndyCar driver. We are back to having an IndyCar driver on the show. A man who is an Indy Lights, Indy NXT race winner, many time podium visitor, and a man who qualified in the Fast 9 for the Indy 500 this year, or the faster part of the field, the very fast part of the field. Benjamin Pederson for AJ Foyt Racing. How's it going, pal? You doing all right?
Good. Thank you for that very fine introduction. Good to see you. And but yeah, excited to be on the show and talk IndyCar.
Absolutely. We have, it's the off season for us, right? So we have gone a little bit, but without talking to an IndyCar driver. We wanted to have you on the show. I mean, a lot happened this year, but let's start out, I guess, before that, a little bit pre-IndyCar, because the year that you had, we all know, I know how it goes. It's tough. It's tough to get into this game, but on your way up through the road, right? The road to Indy, right? That ladder system. How did you find that journey? When did you realize, like, hey, being an IndyCar driver, this is possible? Like I'm seeing we're seeing the right things. We're seeing the right signs. You're talking to the right people. You're working with guys like Jonathan George, who, again, I think he's a very, very smart guy. He understands how to, see talent. When did that kind of start to that road start to visualize for you? And you're like, hey, this is a possibility.
Yeah. I mean, I think it really started when I came from England. I'd raced 2 years in British F3 in 2019, 2020. And then decided to come over to what was Indy Lights at the time, now Indy Next, as everyone knows. And yeah, I would say when I started in Indy Next in 21, that was kind of the first glimpse of, we're close to IndyCar. We're sharing weekends, going to the same tracks. The car is, big step compared to an F3 car. It's much closer to an Indy car. But obviously it was still, at that time I was a rookie in Indy Lights, and there's a lot of new things for me and a much more much faster car. And but yeah, regardless, still finished 5th in my rookie year in Indy Next. And then I would say really started to become an IndyCar reality during my 2nd year of Indy Next. Same team with HMD, and started to have a lot more podiums, had a win that year as well. We were able to, I would say already beginning of that year, we started a lot of talks with IndyCar teams, with my management company and a lot of people around me helping with that process. And AJ Foyt was a big potential at the time. So really fortunate to, like you said, be working with Jonathan George, who at that time was also working with Kyle Kirkwood, who was at AJ Foyt. So yeah, really fortunate that Larry let me kind of be a part of the team when I was still, driving in Indy Next. And I would actually do the races on Sunday and then run over to the IndyCar side and be a part of their race on the timing stand with Foyt and Kyle and Jonathan George. So it's just very, very natural. They kind of took me under their wing, even when there was no contract signed or anything, and let me be a part of it, knowing that there was a future there. And now we're here at the end of the season last year, rookie year in IndyCar, and excited for next year.
Yeah, I mean it's a great story, because obviously once you start finding that success that you had in Indy NXT, Indy Lights, I still keep calling it Indy Lights. I like calling it Indy Lights, but
I
it's
struggle
Indy
with
NXT.
it. Yeah.
But there's a system there that you get into Foyt, right? Understand that, hey, you've got, because I believe when you sign that deal, right, there's a future to it, right? It's not just, hey, prove yourself in your rookie year. We got a little bit of time to grow. And right. I like that you did the 2 years of Indy NXT, because again, that's something that I did throughout my career, 2 years of the Pro Mods at the time. Then we did 3 years of F3, and just kind of going up and learning, making sure you build your level of experience. But this year in IndyCar, boy, it started off with a bang. Literally, that was both of us started in the back. I happened to avoid a crash.
You
happened to be.
Me.
Yep,
it's funny you mentioned that.
We both had wonderful qualifying sessions, but I mean, starting the year like that, right? Huge impact. Like that was ouch, painful.
Yeah,
car explosions, all kinds of stuff. How difficult was that to be like, well, all right, that wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but we got to get right back into it at the highest level with all these, incredible drivers and teams, at the next race?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's funny. You're starting the year with such, positive attitude.
Oh yeah, here we go, excitement. Like everyone's happy.
And literally my only goal that race was just do every race lap, get the experience. That's a big part of your rookie year to understand how it's a huge jump from any series I've gone in terms of race distance. Now we have strategy, right? As you know. So really my goal was just to finish a race. So to be out of the race already three corners in was a big bummer in that regard with the goal. But it was one of those things. It was such a freak accident. There were so many sequence of events that built to it. Many things out of my control. I obviously was completely blind when I came around the corner, and You know
I
what it
was
was
too.
like. You were right next to me.
I was I happened to choose the right lane. That's all.
Yeah, yeah.
I saw some things and reacted. And again, you were already going faster than me, so it's hard to it's hard to see stuff there.
But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, I know what I'm capable of, and it's no secret that our team with AJ, we're a little bit behind with where we're at with setup and what we have access to with dampers. So obviously I know. Obviously we didn't have a car that qualified inside, top 10 or anything like that. So, we were just trying to get the experience and get the season underway. But, I know when the car is there, we were able to be up front and just continue developing. So moving on was pretty relatively easy. It was just more so frustrating to start the year like that. But yeah, we had many good promising points throughout the season, which I'm sure we'll get into. And,
yeah. No, I mean, I want to get into that. Like we talked about it on our season review. We did a little season review document, and I didn't realize this because I had my Texas race was disgusting. It was like I have no idea what I was driving. That was just an awful experience. But you had a great Texas race. Like I think people will need to give you a lot more credit for what you finished 13th there, I believe, right? And that is
Sounds
not
right.
easy to do in this era right now of Texas. Like Texas is a difficult track. If you don't have the car in the window, I mean, you see plenty of good drivers at the back who are just struggling.
Sure.
I mean, all of us at the ECR camp struggled. Renus had a decent day, I think. I'm not really sure what happened there, but like both Ed and I struggled. You had the Ray Hall cars back there struggling. You had all kinds of people struggling. But you had a great day there. Like, just, again, no mistakes, solid, and that had to make you feel good. Like, finishing 13th, like, hey, that's actually great in IndyCar nowadays. Like, if you're finishing in that top half, that top third,
Really great. Yeah.
that's a good day.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty fortunate with Texas that, it's no secret we had very good super speedway cars this year.
Yes.
Texas was my first ever super speedway, so I had my rookie orientation there. It was actually really crazy. I remember the orientation. It was so windy, to the point where, many people were considering it's actually not safe to let a bunch of rookies out there to have their orientation. But we went on with
That's tough. The wind is your enemy.
Yeah. But like I said, and as you know, we had a very good car there, honestly, from the orientation. So it made my life a lot easier. But for the race, there was a lot of unknowns for me personally, being my first super speedway. I didn't really know how close you could get to people when you're going that fast. Texas is a very challenging racetrack, as you know, with the high line. You can't really run there until it kind of somewhat develops.
Yeah, I spun up there. Didn't crash, but I spun. You
I
almost
remember
killed
in
me.
practice-
Yeah, you were right behind me. Yeah.
In practice,
Thank you
spun
for
and
not
I
hitting me, by
missed
the
you.
way.
Yeah, but
I could
now
tell
that
your car was fast right then and there, by the way. I could tell you were happy with it.
right. Now that I think about it, we've actually been around each other a lot this year, on the racetrack. But
I don't know if that's a great thing or not. It doesn't sound great, but it's all right.
No. You guys are pretty fast at the speedway. But anyways, back to the super speedway. We had a very good car, and again, honestly, the goal was just to finish that race. Texas was still early in the year, and back to my St. Pete goal was just to finish the race, and that was a really good result. And obviously a good transition or a good knowledge knowing that we would likely have a good car going to Indy 500. I vividly remember at Texas, Michael Cannon, our chief engineer for the team, saying,
one of my favorite people of all time.
Yes, great guy. When we were at Texas and we were pretty quick, I think we qualified inside top 12, top 15 for sure. I remember him vividly saying, we'll be fine at the speedway, because we didn't have all the aero things or
all
upgrades
the
we needed.
You need all the small things for the speed. Yeah.
We didn't have those things at Texas, and we were still very fast. And I remember Michael saying, we're going to be good for the speedway because we're going to have all those things. So yeah, and then, I mean, that's a good transition into the Indy 500, right? We show up at Indy 500 month of May, and the thing is just really fast right from the start. And back to Michael Cannon, his way of knowing how the whole month goes, it was pretty special to be a part of. We would start the month with a pretty safe car with downforce. he would tell me, we're going to trim a little bit more today, but we've made the right compensations to keep the balance exactly the same. It's going to feel the same, but you're going to go faster. And it was literally, that's what happened. Come last practice day before qualifying, I remember him saying, we're going to do a couple changes. This is what it's going to do to the car. We have to do it if we want to be competitive. There's no choice. And I just said, whatever you got to do, just put it on the car. And sure enough, it went quicker. Behavior was very similar. And it's just pretty special to be with someone that has so much knowledge of what to do and didn't second guess himself. It made my life very easy. That day, I think before Fast 12, I think there's another practice session, if I remember correctly.
There's that. They have that little morning session if you want to do it.
We were flying. I think that was one of the fastest runs of the whole month. I think
you did like 2:35.0, I think, right? Like like something absurd.
It was a 2:35.0, 2:34.8, 2:34.6, and then they made me bail on the last lap to kind of not show what we actually could do.
Well, you showed everything. That's it.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh.
So that was a really fast run. Unfortunately, we missed just a little bit during the Fast 12 with adding a little downforce when we were on the grid. I don't think we should have done that, but easy to say in hindsight, right? And but yeah, excited for this coming year with Indy 500 again, and sounds like we're gonna have even more upgrades. The hybrid's gonna be really interesting. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just gonna be such a different experience going into year 2, knowing what the car is like. It's funny, even though you've raced at all the tracks pretty much last year in Indy Next, it takes a lot of adapting to drive the IndyCar at the tracks because it's so different. Strategy, tires. So it's going to be a completely different experience going into year 2, as you know.
Oh yeah. Ben, I know you have something for Benjamin.
Yeah, Ben and Benjamin. So just like you were kind of talking about with the 500 and how you and Santino had really good qualifying runs. Like, what's that like trying to, your rookie year and Santino hadn't ran a full-time year in a few years at this point. So just like you two finding the confidence to kind of like guide the team in the direction, setup wise and what you want out of the car. Like, what was that kind of difficult for you? And do you feel like it's gonna get easier in the second year?
Yeah, good question. It's, I would say at an oval, that's one of the more pronounced tracks compared to a street circuit, where if you have a really good car, it just makes your life a lot easier. Whereas if you have a poor car on an oval, it's so hard to make up for it. You can be one of the best drivers on the whole grid and struggling to get out of your own way. So in that regard, it made it very easy for Santino and I think any driver on the grid with the caliber of IndyCar drivers could get in one of our cars and kind of get close to what we were doing. It's so much car dependent in all honesty, just with how high the caliber is. But that's the thing. Some teams are extremely good on certain types of tracks. Some are good everywhere. Some are good only on street courses or permanent road courses. So that's kind of what IndyCar racing is about, with how different the cars are in regards to dampers and what people you have on the teams and everything like that. So for us, we happen to be super strong on super speedways, struggled on other parts of the calendar, which is just a reality. But it made our lives pretty easy, and the engineers were super on top of it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, right? Because I am working with Michael Cannon. That's something we definitely have in common there. Michael Cannon, he's very honest with you about what he knows about the car, what he knows that it might do. It might do. Obviously, you can't really fully say what it's going to do, but like he's also very honest. Like if you're in a tough spot, like he's going to say, "Hey, I don't think we have the ability to do that yet." You know what I mean? But vice versa, when you're with him at Indy and seeing his success that he's had in the past at Indy, right? If he tells you, "Hey, we got this, it's going to be all right," and he confidently delivers that to you as a driver, that helps so much. That, like, putting that in your mind, because Michael, for me, like, it also, like, he believes in me, which again, most people have stopped doing that nowadays, but like, you don't lose the ability as a driver. And like when Michael gave me the car to do my job, right? we went out and did it. We were on the podium, like we were fast. We passed the most cars my rookie year, right? But like when he tells you, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to be good at Indy, guess what? That fills you with confidence. You already felt it at Texas, and now you're going into qualifying. I mean, shoot, you were going in that practice session before the qualifying day. I mean, you literally, that was, everyone was like, well, all right, looks like we're competing for the second row. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, holy crap, these guys have all the speed in the world, but it was enough speed and it was enough confidence to where you could drive the car, right? Because again, if you're hanging on for dear life at that speed, it's much more difficult than like just progressing day by day. And is that kind of what you felt like it was? Is like, hey, the progression is the right way here. And by the time, I guess, driving at 234 average, 235, like that is tough, right? But I assume, because the way you and Santino got out of that car, it didn't look like you guys were scared to death driving it. You know what I mean?
I remember, even looking at my onboard from the practice run where we did a 235, the hands are completely still. There's just grip.
Hey, that's what it should.
Exactly.
That's like, you can do that if everything is in the right window, right?
Yep.
And you have the ability as a driver, clearly, because you did it. Like you went out there, you're like, hey, Mike told me I can do this. Boom. Guess what? You did it. When it came time to deliver, you did it.
Yeah, and even I remember most of our runs at the Speedway, we would barely touch our roll bars during the qualifying run. That's how good the car was. Maybe it would just be plus or minus, where the weight jacker would reset to for a little bit of balance. But the cars were so sorted that we barely even had to touch our roll bars. So
that's a dream.
There was so much confidence in the car that you're pushing the boundary of when you're starting to activate the dropping the rear of the car for
the weight jacker,
speed. Yeah, the weight jacker. Thank you. We were playing with how early we could start activating it, even when we're, going as fast as we were, just to get more speed out of it, and then bringing it back up in the air for as late as possible. So, just really special. And like I said with Michael, one of the coolest moments of the month was when he said we need to change this part on the car in order to go quicker for come qualifying. And it was like, if we don't change this part, we're not going to be competitive. And then he just had so much experience to know when to do that, what changes to do with it. And it was a setup change in terms of, how to get the most out of the car.
For speed, yeah.
And pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's funny how at Indy, like, you realize, like, hey, you could drive around there all day at a certain speed and be comfortable, but, like, there are certain mechanical changes on that car that if you make the change, it literally is just for pure speed. Like, it's for less drag, it's for or more efficiency, but that might not necessarily be the most awesome thing for you. Like, a lot of teams mess with wheelbases, right? So, like, you can make the car longer, shorter, essentially, but there's one wheelbase that's really the fastest way to run it. However, it's a little bit more difficult to run. Now, I have gone through years of my career where I couldn't run the fastest wheelbase because for me, it wasn't what I was most comfortable with. But as I've got more experience, I'm like, hey, I'm going to try to maybe adjust myself to these faster mechanical changes overall. So, you've only done 1 year there now, but you now see how, like, one of these small changes can affect those things so much.
100%.
Now, going to the other races, though, right? Indy 500, when you had, I would say, and I talked to Mike about this a lot, right? You guys had what you wanted to have, essentially. Like, you had the bits, the go fast bits. You had all the stuff that you wanted there. But I would say in other races, right, probably didn't have exactly what you wanted. And it's amazing how, and I don't think the casual fan really understands, like, you're a driver that qualified in the Fast 12, Fast 9, like, you're up at the front of the Indy 500 again, and having a great race, too, until you got absolutely rammed in the back, like, again, no fault of your own. But you're the same driver then that has to go through the struggles of the rest of the season, right? Just bad luck, not enough speed, but that's I always try to put it in perspective for people that, like, it's not the same per weekend. The equipment is different. The small things here and there are different. And you had to go through that, right? It probably felt like a heroic day to be qualifying in the top 9. And then all of a sudden now you're like, well, shoot, we're on the last row for a bunch of these road and street courses. And it's just, you don't have that same grip. You don't have the same competitiveness.
Right. It's a very interesting topic. I was talking about it with someone the other day. It's, most of my junior Formula career, like some other drivers that have come to IndyCar, my junior Formula career was pretty successful. I had a lot of success, was with top teams. It was rare in most classes I was in to be outside of top 5. I remember in, Indy Next, my second year, even my first rookie year, during the tests, I remember, especially second year, we were literally fastest at every test almost, constantly battling for podiums and just constantly at the front. So you get used to that mindset. Obviously, the cars are all the same, like IndyCar, except dampers are all the same in Indy Next. And I remember wherever we would show up with how dominant the team was, we would be fast right away. It was so rare that we would do a dramatic change to the car, whether we go to Sebring for short course testing or we go to Road America. The team knew where to start, and it would be competitive right away. So I got so used to being in that environment. So when I went to IndyCar, obviously, like we talked about earlier, AJ Foyt, it's no secret that we're behind in damper development, speed of the car, except for super speedways for whatever reason. But for most road courses, we're just simply behind. And the best way to describe it is a lot of the time when we would roll off the truck, we would be so far out the window, both Santino and I, in terms of our relative pace, setup of the car. We would usually only be separated by 2 or 3 tenths every session, but we would be P20 or P25, and we would start most weekends so far out the window, whereas some teams would be literally 1.5 seconds quicker than us, which is in racing is an eternity, as you know.
Oh yeah.
And we would our feedback would be exactly the same. The car is doing these things, and when both drivers are within 2 tenths every session, it's, both are relatively getting the most out of the car, right? As you know. And we would eventually get to a point in qualifying where the car is somewhat in the window, but that's the starting point everyone else would start with at the beginning of the weekend.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't get to that starting point until qualifying. So when you take teams that start at that point from the weekend and then develop all the way up to qualifying, their performance is so much higher compared to us. So we're just naturally behind when it comes to that, specifically for road and street courses. Ovals, we happen to be, one of the lucky teams where we can roll off and be quick right away for super speedways, whereas others struggle, right? Some other teams, they just happen to be fast everywhere they go right off the truck.
And that's usually the Ganassis, the Penske's.
Exactly.
They have that ability to start closer to the window rather than finding it, which is the hard part. Yeah,
it's very difficult. And
there's not enough time in the weekend, and you even have less practice now to get to that window. So this is the top level of the game, right? Like this is people don't mess around. You got to show up and be ready to go right out the gate.
Yeah. So and for me as a rookie, being new to open dampers, we're talking about inerters and a bunch of things I haven't had access to ever in my career. So I don't
scientific
really know
terms.
What does what, blow off valves going to damper A to F, trying different things, and you're just like they throw a bunch of things on the car, and sometimes there will be sessions if we're so lost where you start with the setup and there's literally 5 changes that go on the car during a stop to see if it's just remotely better, and you're like, it feels remotely better, but you don't know what exactly targeted what, when you have that many changes.
You're changing so many things. You're like changing packages entirely. Like you're going from
throwing a Hail Mary, right?
Exactly. Like a lot of times teams will say, hey, we're going to try our St. Pete baseline here at Detroit, right? For the street course. Well, that didn't work. All right, so we're going to go try our other street course. We're going to try the Long Beach baseline setup, or you're going to try, let's there's all kinds of different baseline setups that if you're really like let's say if you struggled there last year, you're probably not going to show up with the same baseline setup that you ran the year before. So you got to try other things,
And it's a part of the game, but it makes it especially hard for a rookie when you're it's your first year in this IndyCar, which is a new car for you. You're straight into a race weekend, and you go from driving package A for 6 or 7 laps. You come back in, you're getting reacquainted to a track. Then the team throws a completely different setup on. You go out there, car feels like a completely different race car because it is. And then you get another 6 or 7 laps and you have to adapt to that. So there's just so much adapting. Whereas, when you compare to junior formula, those amount of changes aren't happening. So you get the same race car most of the time. It's maybe in junior formula, you're only getting the click or rebound, or you're dropping the rear a flat or so. And it's just much easier to build on the last run. Whereas in IndyCar, you'll do these big changes and you're like, wow, this feels completely different, but we're just going to go for it and see in 6 laps if it's a better race car than what we had before. So much more complicated. And, but yeah, it's a part of the game. It's the highest level, as you know. And it's complicated. It definitely helps having a strong car right out of the truck, and
life is way easier.
If every weekend for us was like the Indy 500, it would have been a completely different year. So, and for some teams and drivers, that's the reality for them with how far ahead they are. So, no, learned a bunch this year. The longest races I've ever done. That was a big adaptation, strategy, pit stops, fuel
physicality,
saving, physicality. But yeah.
Looking towards the future now, though, you have to be. I mean, I am excited for you because there's a Penske relationship, right? Like it's a public announcement. There's a Foyt relationship now with Penske, which is they won the 500. They've won everything in the world. They win all the time. So that have you seen already yet some of that Penske influence in the building or in the way things are shaping up for testing over the winter? Has that been a pretty impressive influence already on you, or is it going to be more like when you get to the race weekends?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the announcement came out kind of middle 3/4 of the year last year, so it was just beginning. I can definitely say there's been a lot of teamwork during the preseason here, especially with all the hybrid stuff going on, testing. I know they've been talking a lot about what we did at the Indy 500. What they did, how can we become better as a team? I know a lot of our guys were with them at the Speedway the other day during some hybrid testing, and it's really exciting. My contract with Foyt is a couple of years when I signed it, so that's we knew something like this was in the works, and it's a reality now. And it's not just an average partnership; it's a true technical partnership, and something that's very, very special to be a part of. To be associated with a team like Team Penske is very special. It's huge, and for a small team like ourselves, it's very important. So it'll be hopefully very, very helpful for hybrid information, as they're one of the test teams for Chevrolet. And the reality for us is we haven't had any days yet of hybrid testing, but I think Will Power and Scott and Max been out there pounding laps as one of the test teams. So hopefully we can get a lot of info from them on, what you can do from a driving perspective and balance and, how to use the thing properly, so we can get caught up to speed really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that takes everything to a whole new level. So that'll be really cool. I think, I certainly hope that, I mean, I don't know what is going to happen yet in my future, but I know that I would love to be, if I have to only do the Indy 500, I think there'd only be one place I'd like to be, and that's the third car at a Foyt Penske team. So
love to have you as a teammate.
We'll see what happens there. But only a couple more questions here, but moving on to like fun stuff. What was the most fun part about being an IndyCar driver this year? Like moving up to that top level series, like it's a fun job. Like it's cool to be a part of this series. We get to do a lot of fun stuff. Like it's sweet. Like it's a dream job. At times, you'll realize that. But what was like the most fun part this year of like, hey, I'm an IndyCar driver. This is sweet.
I mean, I think the biggest realization of that and cool moment is during the month of May at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. the amount of people that are there in the paddock. Obviously, we have some of the coolest garage spots that are in the paddock for AJ
We were
Foyt.
bus neighbors too. We were bus neighbors.
We were bus neighbors as well. I think the whole month is insanely special, and for me, what felt like the most special time being an IndyCar driver throughout the whole season. You're in Indy, when you go, for example, when you go out to dinner, if it's in downtown or at Speedway, all the race fans are there. They know who you are. It's just, you feel very, very special. So that's an amazing feeling. But on the contrary side, making the step to IndyCar, I had no idea how busy it would be also from a media perspective, and how little time you actually have with the team on a race weekend with all these other obligations. That I had heard about it, but I didn't know what it would be like. I remember, I think it was the GMR Grand Prix race weekend, had a practice session in the morning. I think there was only one practice and it would go straight to qualifying, something like that. Or it was the second time there. And it was practice, very, very short debrief in pit lane, had to go straight to a autograph session, separate meeting, whatever obligation it would be. And then you literally come back to the truck, you then grab lunch really quickly, maybe a 10-15 minute refresher on what the team has changed based on your very short debrief from after the session, and then the session starts in 10 minutes and you're back in the car. And it's just so different from junior formula, where you finish the session and you just go straight back to the truck and you spend all your time there. And it's just very, very different in regards to use of your time during an IndyCar race weekend, and that took a lot of adapting as well. I think even a lot of veterans are still overwhelmed at times with, you want more time, but
you can tell because they keep on scootering. They just keep on.
Yeah. But hopefully we get that back, the scooters at the Speedway this year, so we can get around quickly. But no, it's a amazing feeling. I would say the jump in terms of career steps, F4, F3, British F3, Indy Lights, the jump from anything to IndyCar is the biggest jump. In terms of car, your media, your setup options, it's a big step. So learned a huge amount this year for sure.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you coming on to talk about it. I know it was a tough year for most of the time, and I know people talk a lot of wild stuff on the internet that we don't like. But I think you guys have an incredible year ahead of you. I mean, I think that Michael Armbruster just went to your team as well, who, again, great friend of mine, like him a lot, great engineer. You guys are putting the pieces together, putting things together in the right way. I mean, Penske, that's awesome. So I'm excited for you. I think that's a great position to be in. And again, people, this is how this sport works. People don't give a crap about what happened last year as long as you come out next year and you're like, hey, guess what? Now we're in the top 15, top 10 every race. We're just hanging out, having a great time. Like that's just like, people don't. It's easy. Racing is easy. There's a lot of things that are easily forgettable. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And success is great because we look at Alex Palou. Alex Palou is very successful, and he's in a bunch of lawsuits. So, that's, it doesn't matter what's happening there. Because as long as he's still winning, it doesn't matter.
That's very true. It makes up for everything. So thanks a lot, man, for jumping on here. We appreciate that. Of course. Thanks for having me.
Great conversation there with Benjamin. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope everyone, feel free to let us know. But I thought it was a great conversation. Ben, what did you like that as well? Did you think that was something that was like, hey, I respect this guy and for coming on here and being honest with us?
Yeah, I was really intrigued by his kind of differences between going from Indy Lights / next to IndyCar, and how dialing in a setup for the weekend is so vastly different once you get up to the IndyCar, and the amount of things you can change. And I mean, you talk about it all the time, the field can be so spread, but it's really not, because there's not a whole lot there's things you can change, there's things there isn't going to change. So just those minor differences and how you can be that far off of a top team but not really that much at the same time. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, no, great stuff from him. Hope you guys enjoyed it. But let's wrap up the show with our favorite segment, a lot of people's favorite segments, according to, well, what I hear, and maybe from what people tell me. Who knows? But the Ricky Treadway Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week this week, we went very old. We went to the 1938 Indianapolis 500. The 1938 Indianapolis 500 was won by Floyd Roberts. Floyd Roberts won. A lot of names in this race, too. A couple names who eventually do win the Indy 500. So several folks that I do recognize. But we're going to go with the 30th place finisher. The 30th place finisher in this race was Ira Hall. Ira Hall from Martinsville, Indiana guy.
Wow.
And American race car driver. Hall was later elected sheriff of Vigo County, Indiana. So race car driver ended up being a sheriff, which is wild. Hall had several starts in the Indianapolis 500. His greatest fame was gained on the dirt tracks of the Midwest, primarily Indiana and Illinois. He reportedly won as many as 100 races in a season on what was known as the suicide circuit. Well, I don't know what that is, but that sounds wild. Seriously injured in the fall of 1927 at George Rogers Clark Speedway near Vincennes, Indiana, but recovered to return to racing the next year. So looks like he had a couple different Indy 500 starts, 1928, 32, 33, and then skipped 5 years, 38 and 39. So quite a wild Indy 500 history. But best finish at the Indy 500 was 7th, looks like. Best finish was 7th. So Ira Hall, very interesting. Sheriff Hall. So Sheriff Hall is now the Random Indy 500 Driver of the Week. What do you think, Ben?
I like it. And apparently a lot of his fellow competitors called him Pop because he was over age 30 at the time when he was racing. A lot of his racing in the mid-20s, apparently, according to this. So there you go. He's
what a guy.
Circuit. Yeah.
Indiana guy, too. We love an Indiana guy.
Do enjoy that.
And wild that he was born in 1892. Like, oh, man, we're getting old now. 1800s this fellow was born in. Wow. Well, that's another show. Episode 99. We are coming up on episode 100. Appreciate all those that follow along with this show. Appreciate those that listen. Please tell a friend to give it a shot. Leave us a rating, review, whatever you want to do. Follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe, and comment on the video. Let us know what you think. That helps drive traffic. We're just trying to grow. We're trying to grow the show, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. I love doing this. Hopefully there's some exciting news to share with all of you at some point in my life. But until then, we're going to have a great time podcasting. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next week. Hey everyone, Connor Daly here. Please leave a like on this video if you did enjoy it, and also subscribe to the channel as well. That would be very helpful. Be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you so much for the support, and we'll see you on the next episode of Speed Street.